Before I introduce the panelists, I wanted to, there are people that are here that have never either heard of Chat GPT, have not utilized Chat GPT. I know I've utilized it in the sense of if I'm coming together as a group and I want to make sure that my thoughts are right, or if I want to enhance what I've already created and also put forward. And so Chat GPT is an AI computer program that uses its intelligence to receive, analyze, and produce a response that mimics natural human language. The program uses a transformer-based neural network with a massive database that the AI uses to analyze the input information and create a response. When a human user inputs questions or commands into ChatGPT, the AI the text and processes the text and generates the answer based on the neural network data. Now, also, depending on how big the database is and also what the data that's been input into it, the AI actually can come up inaccurate. So I want you guys to be mindful of that too. So these are the different pros, and this is really where questions are going to come from myself to the panelists about the pros and the cons of Chat GPT, because from what I see and it coming about in 2022, it's here. You know what I mean? It's pretty much here forever. So um, it offers fast access to information. So Chat GPT provides a wide range of topics in real time. Personalized learning. Students can tailor questions to their interests and even ask follow-up questions. So sorry, I have a student that would like to come in. Okay. Um, Interest and even ask follow-up questions. So Chat GPT will delve deeper into that interest. It's a supplemental resource with a quick search through its database. Chat GPT allows teachers to have a well of information at their fingertips. Language practice. Students can practice, receive feedback, and ask for help with the AI program. And last, accessibility. Teachers have to maintain a work-life balance, which means they cannot answer emails at all night hours. Students can turn to ChatGPT for information 24/7, especially when their teacher is unavailable. Another added benefit that I did see uh, with ChatGPT for professors is that they can actually have automation in a sense of being able to grade, because grading can take up a lot of time. And so I mentioned that because that's definitely one question that I'm definitely going to ask. Because in today's society, with technology, with WebEx, I know Dr. Dr. Jefferson Moore and I, we talk about our workloads all the time, and the fact that things that we're able to go to so many meetings via WebEx, that it kind of takes the place of yeah, it divvies up the opportunity to have more time, which is usually filled with more work. So these are some of the cons. Accuracy limitations. ChatGPT is not 100% accurate because its data is pulled from the internet. Lack of context. ChatGPT is intelligent but can misunderstand context, leading to incorrect output. There's a lack of critical thinking, a lack of original thought. Also, possible bias. So, ChatGPT is trained in data, and if that data is biased, so is the machine. And then, last, technology dependence. And so, we've already seen it happen. Students and some teachers can't be away from their phones. And so, the more technology that is introduced, the more reliant humans become. With such an easy search tool, it can become a habit to use ChatGPT as a crutch instead of a tool. And so we're gonna move into it. So, uh, for our panelists, could you introduce yourself and the roles in which you play in higher education, starting with Dr. Matthews?
So good morning, everyone. So my name is Dr. Kwame Matthews, and I'm the interim department chair for the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. My role is really as an animal scientist. So I do research, teaching, and extension. For those who don't know extension, it's also known as outreach. So I'm the small ruminant specialist for the state of Delaware, who works with a lot of farmers, a lot of different agencies to write farming grants and potentially help farmers to become more successful in their production systems and earning a lot more money. But on the education side of life, I have like 25% teaching, which is only supposed to be one course per year or one course per semester. But everyone that's on the call that knows me knows that I haven't taught one course per semester in a long time. So I've been here doing teaching, research. Most of the students work in the lab or on the farm with me. So I play a role in a lot of things here at DSU. So let me stop there.
Okay. Dr. Kimberly Milligan.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I also wear many hats. So my name is Dr. Kimberly Milligan, and I'm an associate professor here in the Department of Chemistry. Many of you have taken me or at least heard about me. I am the co-chair of student success. I'm also the director of the water quality lab and the hemp analysis lab. And so my goal is to see if we could use hemp to remediate water. That's one of the biggest goals. So we do a lot of hemp research and water remediation.
Okay. And Dr. Jefferson Moore.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kenrette Jefferson Moore, and I'm professor and chair of the Department of Agribusiness, Applied Economics, and Agriscience Education here at North Carolina A&T. And I think wearing many hats is almost an expectation when you're working at an 1890 as well as just HBCUs in general. But it's because we care. We care about the well being of our students as well as our faculty and staff. And so I've been here about 19 years. I've served in the role of um, assistant, associate, and then full professor. I currently also serve as the undergraduate coordinator of the agribusiness program. And I am the director of the HBCU Agriculture Business Innovation Center that we are um, launching here at North Carolina A&T, which is a partnership between Alabama A&M, West Virginia State University, and Kentucky State University. So yes, we wear a lot of hats. I also still have some ties with my faculty role. I teach an orientation class for new freshmen, and I also serve as the um, I teach or it's hard to explain it, but I'm also an independent study professor. So I have undergraduate research as well as graduate research. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Um, and so I'll just stop at that because there's so much more I could say. I'm like Dr. Matthews, some of everything.
Okay, so
Okay.
with all these hats that you guys wear, uh, it sounds like there's some ways in which automation can be utilized. And the first thought that I had was with you, Dr. Matthews, when you talked about your cooperative extension work and working throughout the state of Delaware with farmers. I thought of automation, but either everybody can take the question or one or two can take the questions, but that's essentially what my question is. Do any of you guys use any form of artificial intelligence in your work? Okay, Dr. Milligan.
Yes, chat has become my one of my best friends. So it's here, and so we might as well utilize that. It helps me with taking care of those tedious, mundane jobs that we have, creating emails, coming up with ideas for proposals. I can use it to generate test questions. I mean, so I take full advantage of chat.
Okay. Anyone else?
This is Kenred. I don't use ChatGPT. I don't. But I do use AI.
Okay.
So when I have to read a lot of documents, so I use accessibility tools, and I have the computer read to me so that I can get through quite a bit of information. Um, I do know of its capabilities, and I plan to use it one day as I need to, but right now I'm just using AI to read to me and kind of help me sort through a lot of information in a timely manner.
Okay.
And on the other end of the spectrum, I don't really use AI. And that's not because of me not wanting to use it. Sometimes I just don't have the time to sit down to figure it out.
That's what I was gonna say.
Which one would work best and which one would set up properly for it to help me. So a lot of times that's my problem is more of a I don't have the time to sit down to figure it out yet. But that's something I'll plan to do in the summer or in a break.
No, I totally understand what you're saying because I think that we moved from anthology to simplicity. And when my ball started getting rolling in 2020 with developing my offices, I had already put together a system. So when simplicity came about 2 years later, I was like, first of all, it's the beginning of in the middle of the semester. I need this to roll out during the summertime when I can actually think and make sure that I can utilize it to the best of my abilities and tailor it to my needs. So I totally understand what you mean by that. So after hearing the pros and cons of artificial intelligence, what are your views about AI and why? And so I'll start with Dr. Matthews because you're very particular, like I am, like you were saying.
So I think AI has its role. So AI has a big role, and I think a lot of time, like Dr. Milligan said, she can use it to help to generate ideas. So it will postulate something that you didn't think about really, because it's in one sense it's basic, but in the other sense it's like something of critical need that you can utilize to help somebody else. So reading about AI, learning about AI has been something. So I don't know if I ever told people. I told people or tell people sometimes. So my first associate degree I ever had was in art, actually computing. So it's in computing and business. So my idea of using AI would be to help me to help students and then to help the students. One of the big factors why I don't think AI is so helpful to me yet is because, again, particularly I teach animal science or I do animal related stuff, which has a lot of outside implications, and I don't see AI doing much with that yet. Apart from moving products on a processing line, apart from moving products in a lab, I don't see the AI system set up to help me there yet. With research, it could. With research, I've been to FMC, and I always thought that DSU, if DSU had half the money FMC had, I would have one of the best labs on campus because I watch AI work in FMC to do the same research that I'm doing in my lab. With AI, they're testing, I think it was 100,000 chemicals a week or something like that. I
Wow.
can barely test 10 in my lab because I gotta set them up individually and I can barely run through, and that's 10 over a year.
Mm.
Not over
Yeah, in a month.
and we're testing 100,000 chemicals in 1 week. So when I brought my students there, they were so amazed that the same thing that we're doing in the lab, they're doing at FMC, but they're doing it at a large scale because of AI. So that's where I see AI coming in and helping me 100%. And then formulating ideas. I think AI would be great to use in the classroom because it would help alleviate, like you said in your first part of your presentation, it would help alleviate some of the grading, especially for those questions that are yes, no type answers. But the ones that have critical thinking, again, that's the questions that I would have to grade. If any consolation of AI is in Blackboard, Blackboard is my AI that I use. to grade multiple choice questions and true and false. So that's the most AI that I've used so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Milligan?
I kind of want to bring, so computational chemistry is like what Dr. Matthews says. If we think back to like the 80s and 90s and traditional organic chemistry and how much time like a PhD student would spend, they would spend 4 years working on a molecule to create some drug, some potential drug. And now with AI, you don't have to waste time. You would know within days whether that molecule would even be worth moving forward with. And so I say the intelligence isn't going anywhere, and so I think we just have to be creative in how we use it. But it definitely has applications in research and classroom. And I even encourage students. We had a project yesterday where students had to they had to form teams. I had team wave and team particle, and students had to basically prove to me that light exists as a particle and light exists as a wave. And in order to do that, they had to do some research. And so I encourage students to kind of, use it. It does have applications, and so we should embrace it. But that's an example of how I use it. I use the technology in the classroom.
One thought that I just had was, uh, well, everybody knows I run, and I was running, and then I was done, and I happened to look at my phone and look at the news, and one of the articles was, and I'm also saying one of the places that I really think that AI could definitely be utilized would definitely be in medicine, right? Because it's always called a second opinion. So, and then sometimes you can have a good doctor and you can have a bad doctor that went through medical school. So I'm saying this because the article was on a young child that had been to 17 different doctors to try to get a diagnosis. And finally, it wasn't a doctor that diagnosed him properly. It was actually AI. But also, Dr. Jefferson Moore, the question to you as well. After the pros and cons of AI, what are your views about AI and why?
I think it's wonderful. It's Look, it's a tool,
Hmm.
and with using that tool properly, it can solve a lot of problems, as my colleagues just stated. But if used to compromise integrity, that's an individual issue. I was just kind of thinking about how I used to have to go to the library and pull from the card catalog, go to the library, find the book, pull the book, and then start to spend my whole day. Just as Dr. Milligan was saying, how we have reduced time just by being able to utilize large search engines, right? Now our books have been digitized, but does that limit our ability to learn and to grow and improve ourselves? No, but you do have people who do compromise the whole integrity of it all and just, I don't know, abuse it,
Hmm.
just like social media can be used in an abusive way, but we also can use it in a positive way. So I'm for it.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, my daughter uses it. That's really how I first started understanding ChatGPT. She is becoming a creative writer, and she'll write her short stories, and she'll have ChatGPT to give her suggestions on how to fix something in the story. And
Mm.
so she's learning from ChatGPT as she is developing her stories. I think it's a wonderful thing. Again, it's tool, and it's the individual that uses the tool that may, compromise its value, I would say.
Okay. So one of the listed pros from the screen was that ChatGPT could assist students with their homework. Some individuals will take that assistance too far, and that's pretty much one of the one of the topics that we have to have if we're going to talk about higher education and be professionals. The good with the bad. So with that being said, as far as it being taken too far, have either of you received assignments that were completed by ChatGPT? And I say that because when I was listening to the news podcast, that's what the number one thing that the professors were talking about. They were like, how do I get a student that comes to me that I'm supposed to be developing, but can turn in an assignment that is produced at my level or better? And so that's definitely one of the questions I want to ask. Have any of you received any chat GPT assignments?
Not
I
to
think I'm
my
aware.
knowledge.
Okay.
Same, not to my knowledge. And after reading, I must be honest, after reading a lot of these assignments, I don't think ChatGPT wrote like that. If
I agree.
that is GPT, then I would get rid of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I
Some of those
agree.
assignments are not that way.
Okay. So you're able to see still where the student is developed to where you can see a difference in the chat GPT versus getting something that you would just be like, okay, this is
So I
working.
will tell you that I moved to project-based assignments years ago. And so it requires um ChatGPT can't provide the responses that I'm looking for. And
Ah,
I do that on purpose. I did that on purpose before a ChatGPT,
okay.
you know?
Yeah,
And
I
so,
agree. I think a lot of my assignments, I've moved away from finding answers that you can just Google. So I take a lot of time developing my exams and coming up with projects for students to do that make them have to put some thought into it. I mean, chat's not going to be able to help them think through an entire process. It can help, but it can't provide the straight answer like Google. I would recommend for students who are here, I would recommend using chat to help with your emails. I mean, I think students need some of these emails come up, and maybe not anyone here in particular, because you guys are all amazing students. But I have received emails and from students that are just not professional, and I would recommend writing the email out. This is what I do. I use it for my emails too to kind of remove emotion because sometimes we start an email to someone, or if a student emails me and I'm ready to get right back, I just take a minute, type my email, and then copy it into chat and say rewrite or make and it's amazing. It'll change the entire tone of your email and you come off as professional to your professors, and it removes the tone from the emails. And so that's one of the things that I would say if you are a student or a faculty member that struggles with emails and how you sound, because some of us we don't know how we come off. I would recommend using chat in that space.
hmm.
That's a great suggestion. I utilize Grammarly. So if not ChatGPT, utilize Grammarly. It's right there and it provides little icons or emojis to let you know how this sounds.
Well,
So
I was going to say that sometimes from the students that I've worked with, and this is not all students, um, some students will do that and still go with their own thought. Like, I have to be right. I know. And I'm not lying because I had one student that was a scholar and she didn't like what one of her professors had told her would end up happening or, why she had to do different things. And she just texted me and she was like, Dr. Mara, do I have to sit here and listen to that? And I'm thinking, my advice is you're going to end up needing that. That's a professor in your major. You're going to still have them again. And so, in addition to everything that you guys are saying, I also feel like there should be a time limit input, right? Because how we feel in the moment is not how we're going to feel in an hour, in a day, in a week. And so, even if you do get those options, also factor in time as well. If you were if you were to ever receive a paper, right, that is Chat GPT, one, is it plagiarism? Is it considered plagiarism?
That is a tough one because I know that there's an argument for both sides because plagiarism is taking someone else's work. And I know that chat doesn't necessarily take someone's work, but it generates the idea. But you're walking a thin line because it didn't come from you. So it wasn't an idea. So I would say be very careful. Use it to get the idea, but make the writing come from you. I don't know. Dr. Matthews, help me out with that.
So I think I've been to multiple meetings now with other faculty that sees it kind of a mixed signal or mixed situation as well. And in my class, I probably would potentially say it's plagiarism only because of the idea that that's not your thought. It's not necessarily your thought that came on a piece of paper. That's somebody else, something else's thought, or somebody else's thought put together and then created a document. From my standpoint, again, I'm like everyone else on the call, that all my colleagues that give questions that you have to think about and you got to write answers for based on thought process. Critical thinking is necessary, and if you're not thinking critically to write a paper, then to me, you don't really want the degree in some sense. You don't want it. I can understand you going to chat for getting ideas like Dr. Milligan said. You go there, you get some ideas. This gives you somewhat of a write-up of something what you can use, but you still make it your own. Because if you can make your own ideas and put that on paper, I'd rather grade that than grade a perfect paper. Because you giving me a perfect paper from chat just tells me that, all right, I can copy and paste things. You giving me a paper from yourself, even if I gotta put edits in there, I feel like you will grow a lot more. Your thinking is gonna grow, your whole process is gonna grow. So, and I'd rather that. When I write letters of recommendation, I write them from scratch. And stuff like you writing a bad paper, your first paper that you turn in, I remember that to compare it to your last paper that you turn in that was good. So I write that in your recommendation letters because, in my opinion, that is showing me growth.
Growth.
Write about your growth. If you give me papers from ChatGPT and it looks perfect from day one, you're not growing. So that's how I look at it.
So true. Anybody else about plagiarism or your thoughts on it, Dr. Jefferson Moore? I don't think I heard from you.
I don't know. I don't know. It just kind of depends if like Dr. Milligan said, that when you're writing your email, right, and you ask for, to update it or to offer suggestions, is that really plagiarism? The idea was originally yours, and they just worded it using grammar, I'm assuming, to make it better. And that's not necessarily plagiarism.
Okay.
You're not plagiarizing ideas, you're just using better grammar, right? So I don't think that's plagiarism. In my opinion, that's not.
So, of course, we always have repercussions for our consequences, right? And so, um, if a student actually were to submit a paper like that, would we all know that the syllabi is the Bible, right? So the syllabi has its stated consequences for cheating and things of that nature. But I mean, I have no problems with being real in the sense of through growth. You know, I've had my hands tapped, and so I would say I didn't get the full hammer thrown down on me. Am I a cheater or anything like that? No. But I'm just saying I've had my hand tapped. And so there is something always called grace. So if, like Dr. Matthews was saying, hey, I can see your level of development and then I can come down there to then bring you back up with an actual paper versus a perfect paper, what would be a repercussion that you would have for that student that submitted a chat GPT paper, and why?
So for me, so I can answer first, let me Dr. Jefferson made a good point. If
Mm-hmm.
you wrote the paper and then put it in chat, that's a whole different thing from you just asking chat a question and it providing you a paper. So
Okay.
then that's a whole different thing from plagiarism. So if you ask chat the question and it provided the paper, that's plagiarism, in my opinion. If you gave your paper to chat to read it and edit it, that's not plagiarism. That's helping you. So that's growth too. But from a perspective of you submitting a paper that I think is plagiarism, first I'm going to talk to you. So I don't naturally, even though my syllabus says I'm going to bring you to the full extent of the university's regulation and all these things, if you've had a class with me before, you'll realize that I'm not going to just go to judicial affairs for everything. We're going to have that conversation first. And once we have that conversation to make sure you're aware of what's going on, both of us are on the same page, what happened, why you did this, how you did that, then I can start having repercussions about what you do next. Because if you are constantly submitting plagiarized documents, then I have to take you to judicial affairs because that means you're not learning. But if you're not constantly doing that, then what I do normally is I'll say, all right, you did it once, that's fine. We'll work through it. You might have to rewrite a paper if you had if I caught it where it's 100% just plagiarism. And that is why now I don't have students submit their papers via emails anymore. All papers are submitted through Blackboard because Blackboard will check for plagiarism. That
Mm.
is why I submitted through Blackboard. Because now I don't have to worry about what was plagiarized. I can come in and say, this was plagiarized. This is what
Mm.
was there. That is how it's done. We can have that conversation. We move on. That's how I deal with it.
Okay. Dr. Milligan, because I saw that head moving a lot.
No, I agree. I tell students don't send it to me via email. I get too many emails, but I use Blackboard for the same reason. I think the problem with chat is you're going to see issues more in like the English departments. I think that's where you're going to see where students are having to write paper upon paper and composition. But I think in STEM we don't really see it as much because we write papers, but I mean I think the issue is in those English class in those general courses where you have papers like students have to submit 5 or 6 papers a semester and they're using chat to do all of their work. In STEM, I don't really see it that much, as much. But I agree with Dr. Matthews.
That would be the same route that you would go as
Yeah,
far as
talking to the student first, but it is in my syllabus that you will receive a 0, and I guess it just depends on the circumstances. But again, I think I'd pull the student, to the side or have them come into my office and talk to me first.
okay. Dr. Jefferson Moore.
I agree. I don't, and you know me.
Uh-huh.
You know that the last thing I would ever want to do is to get
Yes.
you in trouble because I know how that looks on the other side. And I didn't come to this university to put students in a position where it could change the course of their lives in a negative way. So I would, like my colleague said, I would pull you aside, have a little talk with you, give you some grace. If it happens again, give you a little bit more grace. But I'm hoping that it wouldn't be a third time. If I just want to see the best for all of our students, and I work with you. But I really don't have a big issue with plagiarism or cheating per se because it is project-based work.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Hmm. And that's a good thing, because when I think about, I was Ag Econ when I was with Dr. Jefferson Moore. And so that's a lot of, I don't know, of course, it's a lot of work because it's economics, but it's also a lot of work on your end to develop these project-based projects centered around economics. So, yeah, it was one thing if you're thinking about like chemistry and projects with labs and things of that nature, but yeah, that's really good. So my other question is, when students utilize AI technologies to complete assignments, what are they really missing out on educationally besides that growth that Dr. Matthews just talked about? I'll give you an example. I'll never forget my favorite subject growing up was mathematics. So I remember I was in high school from the years 96 to 2000, and I grew up in Texas also. So Texas Instrument. So you guys remember that TI 89, and then it would go higher, then it would go higher, then it's the 92, 93 TI. And so I know that one of the things that educators complained about at that time was, hey, you guys, you're able to utilize all these calculators to do things like calculus and things of that nature. And I didn't get to use that type of technology, and you guys aren't going to remember it. And what happens if you don't have a calculator one day? So that's pretty much where this question is coming from about utilizing Chat GPT. Yes, it is good for some things as far as what Dr. Jefferson Moore was talking about with writing and things of that nature. But whether it's utilized and or abused, what do you see students missing out on educationally?
I'd say
Well,
critical thinking.
I was going to say critical thinking, but I didn't want to. Yeah, critical thinking. And critical thinking, students, really translates to being able to problem solve, right? So, my mentor, she always made me realize that, you know, companies, employers, universities, they don't just employ you because of whatever. They employ you because you're there to problem solve and or be in the sense of put the company in a position to earn profits. And so that comes with nothing more than critical thinking all the time. So yes, critical thinking is one. Student development in the classroom is another. Any others that you guys see?
maybe creativity.
Oh yeah, creativity. Yeah, that's big too.
Yeah.
Perseverance too.
And
You
discipline.
know, yeah, that discipline, just working hard, pushing through when something is complicated, to always be able to win is not necessarily a good thing. You want to, I remember the very first exam I took in my field, I made an F on it. And I'm telling you, that was motivation. And sometimes we don't get that if we are always right or perfect or
Or handed something.
yes, yes.
Yeah, most definitely. Because not only that, but it's not going to always be that way when you leave to go to graduate school or when you leave to go to your employer. I know I had the conversation with you before I left to go to Carbondale, and I was like, oh, I'll be fine with this. I'll be fine with that. And you're like, Alex, they're expecting you to know this before you get there. like, like you're playing around. They're expecting you to know this. So those things are really important. And then also, what would be your final advice for the students about how to maximize AI technologies to aid them in a collegiate experience?
I would just still fall on integrity. If you have it without this tool or platform, then you'll have it with it.
Hmm.
hmm It's the user, not the tool.
Dr. Milligan?
That was beautiful.
That's what I
I love
said. I
it.
was,
I mean,
you see, I didn't
I
say
like
nothing.
it. I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even want to say anything else. That's it. That was it.
Dr. Dr.
I
Matthews?
think she answered for all of us.
Yes.
I'd say one thing I'd tell the students is all of the conversation we had, we did talk about development, critical thinking. We did talk a little bit about a little bit of everything when using this AI. And I think you should take that into consideration. Every student should take into consideration that when you go to a job, they're looking for somebody that has integrity. They're looking for somebody that has critical thinking skills, the balance between critical thinking and integrity, how to make that work in the job. So don't just do it for a class today that you want to pass. if you don't learn anything from what you're doing, then it doesn't help you. So I tell students all the time, getting a 4.0 GPA is not telling me anything about you. You get a 4.0 GPA and you've never done anything else but class. Like you don't go outside to be a part of any programs. You don't try to do anything to develop you. Then to me, you had all the time in the world to get that 4.0 compared to a person that has a 3.8 GPA or 3.6 GPA that has they were honors president, they were president of the pre-vet club, they were president of the chemistry club, they worked in the chemistry department or whatever department you're in. That person to me is more grounded than a person with a 4.0 that did nothing but school. So in that sense, it's the same thing with the chat with AI. Don't just rely on AI. Rely on you too, so that you can grow as a person. You can maintain your job when you get it. And just to throw a plug in, we've got a lot of students that go to jobs, and I can say this from as the chairperson for the department and as a person that single-handedly helped many students to get to where they're going. One thing I can say, there's a lot of complaints coming back from us, from all, not just 1890s, but HBCUs in general, that we get the students in the jobs, but they don't maintain the job. Part of that is critical thinking, again, integrity, and just the know how. You gotta know how to do it. Like, you don't want to get everything handed. You don't want AI to be easy work for you. Use it to help you, but not use it to rely on it. So that's what I would say.
And also, just to piggyback on that, because this is what I was going to say, and I'm so glad that you just said it before me. When I was at Merck and I was working with Dr. Krowski, she actually literally gave me an internship. Like she wants Dell State students in her lab. And I thought that it was just so interesting that one of the things that she emphasized, it wasn't about a major, it wasn't about how many, like a degree that you have. And this was in a lot of the different labs, because I think we toured four. They want students to have a general passion and understanding for what they are applying for, right? So they don't just want somebody who checks off all the boxes. They want to know, have you gone outside of your classroom and developed your knowledge base about what you're applying for? You got me? So that matters because then it shines through as a passion because they said they're willing to work with anybody. But if you have somebody that shows up that just doesn't have a passion for what they're trying to do or that field of study, then it's not going to drive you to not just get the job, but also to keep the job. If you guys could give them a round of applause, I appreciate you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.